All right, this is kind of going to be an obscure tip, but I don't see a lot of people talking about this functionality that Logic has had since the beginning. If you go to Window and you go to Midi Environment, this window will pop up. Well, you can choose from here, Mixer. What this gives you is essentially a track mixer where you can cable instruments. You could link one instrument to another. Like if I cable this one to that one, the MIDI for this instrument will be passed on to this one. Okay. You can also move these channels around however you want, which I like because it takes more advantage of your screen real estate. I mean, I happen to have a crappy low resolution monitor, but I'm sure some of you has sick displays that you could see 3 rows of channels at once. But anyway, the coolest thing is the cabling. I'll show you why. You have this object in Logic called the transformer, and if you open this thing up, well, let's make a new one. Let's just add a new transformer. This is a MIDI transformer. And so if you cable any instrument into it like this, you can do operations on the MIDI. You could have the incoming velocity get changed to something else on its way somewhere else. You could get the channel, you could get the, you could change one note to another automatically on its way somewhere else. So think about situations where you want one master instrument to control other instruments, right? Maybe you want to change the MIDI in some way. Things like MIDI triggered envelopes, things like electronic layers for your drums. You could have all this baked into your template automatically. So one example of this would be, let's see, you got these are different rules for how you change the incoming and the outgoing. Like, what does it do? So right now we got apply operation and let non-matching events pass through. Let's do apply operation and filter non-matching events. So if it's a note on any channel and the pitch equals C-2, for instance, you will let it pass through. You could just as easily, have this change to something else. Or you could even, what's cool, you can even remap velocity on its way somewhere else, which is cool. What I use this for is when I'm making drums in Spirit Drummer, I like having one MIDI pattern where I write the pattern, like, kick, hi-hat, snare, blah, 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 all that. But I like to layer electronic drums on my Spirit Drummer instance. I like to make an acoustic break, and I like to have electronic layers to make it beefier, right? So what I have in my template is I have all these different drums. These are all the keys that correspond to the different Spirit Drummer snares, rides, cymbals, and I filter them. And I'm summing them using this thing called the MIDI monitor module, which is this. You can cable multiple things into that. See, here's all the hi-hats. What I can do with this is I can deliver that MIDI to my electronic layers automatically. Like here's my electronic snare and phase plan, right? Let me turn this thing off, and there's quite a big difference. And I've got my electronic kicks automatically layered, and I've got MIDI triggered envelopes, which are really cool. So, my hi-hat MIDI automatically comes from Spirit Drummer and triggers this envelope. I've got a bunch of envelopes in here. So you can do really cool things with this. You can try to think about how you would set up your template. If you're doing things like layering drums all the time, or you're using Spirit Drummer, Addictive Drums, or Logic's Drummer, you can set up these transformers to automatically trigger other instruments and just save that into your template so it's just baked in there. Save you a bunch of time. Obviously you don't want to set this up every time you would die. But yeah, you can do all sorts of fun things. Like, for instance, I've got a filter here that takes all the snares, and I'm filtering out all the MIDI that's above 67 velocity, and I'm filtering all the MIDI that's below 67 velocity. So now I could have a different ghost snare layer that automatically layers on my drums if I'd like. It's just there, it's just in my template ready to go. Like here it is right here. I'm not even using it right now, but if I wanted a quiet ghost snare and I wanted a different main snare, I've all these things are already cabled. See, they're all already in there. So transformer, don't sleep on the transformers, don't sleep on the environment window. you can do a lot of really cool, profound things. People don't really use this as much. I think a lot of the old heads do. But yeah, look at all these different MIDI features. Like you've got channel splitters, all sorts of interesting things. MIDI delay, arpeggiators, all sorts of little objects that are hiding in here that you can use. Back in the day, people used to have to build their templates in the environment window when they had a bunch of MIDI gear. Now that Logic's kind of made it a little more streamlined since then, but there's a lot of powerful things you can do in the environment window, so definitely check it out. Hope that makes sense.